strange because everyone thinks academia is a lot more relaxed. But if you actually look at the rankings in the tertiary institutions, you'll see that a lot of the people who are full professors are often not women and are even less often black women. So there is something that's wrong that we need to change in terms of the structure, in terms of expectations. Understanding that women by nature have more responsibilities. Not saying that men aren't responsible, but not saying that men don't need to take responsibility, but making room for women to do what they also need to do without feeling like they are compromising their personal lives. So it is a challenge transformation in terms of insofar as women are concerned in the legal fraternity. Mabule?
I think it's still very slow in corporate. Like, they'll put more women in management positions and call it transformation, and that's really not it. That's not what we're asking for. We're not asking for more management positions. We just really want to be treated like the men are treated in corporate. Like, I know when I was still in consulting, once a woman got married, you knew she wouldn't be planned on any of the major projects. And once she had a baby, even worse. There was no single woman in the department in management because they always said, oh no, but women can't be in management. They're married now, they have kids. And it's like, but the men are also married, they also have kids, but they've been promoted. What's the difference? So I think there's still just there's a stigma that you can't be a married woman, you can't be a mother and have a career. So once too often you feel like you have to choose, do I want to succeed in my career or do I want to build a family? And yeah, it's still very slow. And when you ask for transformation, they'll tell you, oh, but now we have more women in management. And that's not what transformation is, because those women end up leaving managerial positions because they really can't juggle everything. And just corporate in natural makes them feel bad for actually having to leave early to go pick up their child or the child is sick. It's just, hopefully we'll see a change soon, but right now it's just very slow.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. So, but are these not some of the challenges that you also want to deal with or just try to address in future now?
I think a lot of people do try to address them, especially these women that are put in managerial positions. Like, they will fight like the small fights, like having a lactation, what do they call that? Lactating room at work. But it's really a difficult fight to fight because at some point, even they get tired of the fight and they just give up. You see a lot of women leaving corporate, not because they want to, but it's just impossible for them to fight this fight, to do their work, to be mothers, to be wives. It's a very difficult fight. And I think in fighting that fight, we actually do need men to be our allies, to fight the fight with us, to actually enable the change, because it's really difficult doing it alone.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think it makes it all the more important for us to have more and more organizations that spring up by women for women. Well, not excluding men, but I mean having that mindset that as women we understand what challenges might be facing women. So in our organizations we have things like having a more flexible working schedule, where for instance you have core working hours during a certain period, but you can catch up on your work during other hours, so that it gives you a bit more flexibility in terms of what you need to do in your ordinary life as a human being. So I think that's why there is sort of a need to have more organizations that are led by women as well, in order to give that flexibility and to accommodate women.
Okay, I believe, Nkateko, your questions have been answered. I'd like to think so.
Yeah, no, thanks. Have been answered.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a question myself. I think I'd like to present it to both speakers. So there is...
You're on mute.
Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. Okay, I have a question myself. I believe there's a question that most law firms and companies tend to ask us as well, applicants and law students. They usually ask us, why do we want to join that specific company? I believe this is a very difficult question for most of us, and I believe a lot of us would like to know, how do we actually go about answering that question? Like, why do we want to join that specific company or that specific firm? How do we answer that?
Okay, I can start, and Mapule, you can add if there's anything you think I've missed out on. I think the starting point would be one of those tips that we had shared earlier. So making sure that you research the organization that you want to join. When you research an organization, you'll see what their mission is, what their values are, and you'll see what they practice in, so what their areas are or their departments are. So if you feel that what you want to achieve in your own career is aligned with their mission and their values are aligned with your values, and they have practice areas that you would specifically be interested in practicing in and gaining exposure to, then those are things that you can raise as reasons why you want to join with that, or the reasons why you want to join that particular organization, because of a certain level of alignment. So that's why it's important to do that preliminary research before you have your interview, before you apply, so that you know why, or like what your why is, and it would really be linked to some level of an alignment between yourself and that particular firm. Mapule?
I think you basically covered everything, because I normally look at like the mission statement of the company, and then I'll tie it in with like, I believe in X and the company's mission is Y. So I think we align in this regard. And also basically the practice areas, the company is a specialist in this and I want to grow in that area, and I believe that this is the right place for me to grow. Something along those lines, but basically just make sure that you go through the company website thoroughly, and that will actually just help you. Just tie their mission statement with your own personal missions, and that's how you answer that question.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for answering that question. And okay, I think we have reached the end of our webinar. Thank you so much to our speakers and our attendees for joining us today. I truly hope that everyone has found this webinar very insightful and incredibly motivating, and I believe it has also given us a good overview of what we can do with our legal careers. Okay, Motsapoleng just raised her hand. You can unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, I'm sorry to the last question on the last meeting. Yeah, I'm in the financial team, right? And I've seen that most of my colleagues, mostly they come from the law background. And when they said to me that it's quite advisable to be a financial planner when you have the law LLB degree, because now, like from my side, when I was in my LLB, I was thinking that maybe I'm gonna go into the practice, but I think as I have asked quickly, that is it advisable to open your own practice? So what do you say about like moving from practice and then joining financial planning?
Sorry, is the question about moving from practice to financial planning? I didn't quite get
Yes, that's the question. Like, is it advisable and what are the advantages?
Okay, so I can't advise about moving from practice because I really have no experience with practice at all. But from a financial planning perspective, we actually do work with a lot of financial planners in our company, and you can actually become a financial planner without actually having to do any other additional courses, just using your LLB. And I think the skills you would need for a financial planner is essentially the same that you'd need in practice, because it involves the same as, with an attorney who would consult with the client for financial planning, also consulting with the client, doing the needs analysis for the clients. And so I think there is no, I can't advise on the part from moving from practice. That part I really don't know, but I think from what I see with other people in our company, it seems like it's quite a rewarding area. And like I mentioned in the earlier part, you can advance your career by doing the Certified Financial Planner Board exam, but to actually do that, you need to complete the postgraduate diploma in financial planning in order to qualify for the Certified Financial Planner Board exam. And then you'd also need to complete the RE5 to actually become a financial planner in the companies, because that's a prerequisite in terms of the FACE Act and the FSCA regulations. I hope that answers you, because yeah, I was really confused about the practice part, but I hope that answers your question.
Slightly, yes, it does.
Okay, Nkateko, can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, no, just the last one to Dr. Scott, because when you check the basis of the legal practice sector, most of what he was trying to achieve is trying to usher in this, or maybe to push this transformation debate, or right, whether it be from a male perspective or female perspective. So, but now there is another debate that is started in the legal profession in terms of your trust account advocates saying they're being sidelined. Have you heard anything in terms of that, or do you have a view to say they are not getting briefs and whatnot for the trust account advocates?
Sure. For me, that's a difficult question to answer, because even within the firm, I'm not in the litigious area. I'm more corporate and commercial. So that would be something that would be better placed for someone who deals with a lot of litigation. I do see we have an advocate online though. So I don't know if I may, but may Advocate Aisha perhaps weigh in on that?
Please do.
Good day. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
So are you asking essentially whether the trust account advocates are provided with briefs, or is that your question? What is your question essentially?
Yeah, my question is around that, because they're saying they're finding it a little bit difficult to be getting record, to be briefed, as opposed to your traditional advocates, or some of the advocates who are in the bars, for an example now. Because we're saying with these trust account advocates, we're trying to open up the legal profession for some of the people to be able to take the instruction directly from the clients or the general public, if you may.
Well, I find that quite surprising, because I would have thought that clients would have then been at the door of the trust account advocates, because you're offering a service to the public. So it's really not the attorneys that would be briefing them. It would be the clients that would be approaching them directly. So I find that surprising, but perhaps it's also a question of us being in the pandemic situation, and perhaps it is one of the challenges that the trust account advocates are experiencing, that generally start-up practitioners as attorneys experience. So attorneys that are also starting out, everybody starting out has challenges. So I think that if they are experiencing these challenges, it's part of building their practice. Isn't any attorney that's starting out under 5 years? I mean, it's a lot to establish a client base. So one doesn't, I think perhaps, if you already in an established structure, or an employer's where the firm is in operation for years and years, then you are sourcing work because of that particular firm. But if you're starting out, and you're starting out as a trust account advocate, clearly you're starting out your own practice. So it makes sense then that possibly there would be that teething time frame. And also, just to add to that, because when the LPC was established and the Act was effected, I studied those sections quite extensively just to understand what the dynamic was. And I think the idea behind it is to really allow choice. So right now, I'm a referral advocate. So that means I can only accept briefs from an attorney. So I haven't attended to, I think, the practice management course. So I would need to write that course in order to be a trust fund advocate. So I deliberated because I don't simply want to continue a path just because I'm on the path. So I studied those sections and I said, look, is this something I personally do? Am I happy as a referral advocate, or do I want to be a trust fund advocate? So I decided for myself to continue as a referral advocate consciously, because if I am a trust fund advocate, what happens? It means that I am in competition with Dr. Tumbo Scott. And I am now competing with clients because we both can do the same work. But yet, because I am experienced, I'm admitted in 2000, my skill is litigation. So I prefer focusing simply on litigation and things that are closer to the litigious environment. Whereas if I was a trust fund advocate, then I could do the consultations on wills, on anything that isn't litigious. So I made that choice for myself. So I think the aspect of having a trust fund advocate and being able to do that gives you choice, because now you can move away from being a specialist in litigation. You can do and compete with attorney firms and do whatever they are doing, because you can consult directly with the public. I am prohibited from consulting directly with the public, and I am only allowed to accept a brief and then do litigious matters. So I think that don't underestimate, your scope of work is larger, but as a trust fund advocate, you can do more. You can do litigation and you can do anything else that isn't litigious. But what does that mean? It means that you're competing with the attorneys. So if you're competing with Dr. Tumbo Scott, and for clients, is she going to brief you? So it doesn't make sense. She would rather brief a referral advocate, because she needs my speciality, and the relationship she has is still with the client. As a referral advocate, I can never compromise that relationship with the client, because I have clear parameters, and I don't encourage that personal relationship, because the personal relationship is between the attorney and the client. It is not between the referral advocate and the client. Now, I'm not saying that trust fund advocates is more. It's not a good thing. It depends. You need to know your market. You need to know that you are competing with practicing attorneys. You need to know that you are working directly with the public. So if you are trying to source work from practicing attorneys, that will be a bit more challenging, because they will be a bit threatened, because you in the same, you can take their clients, whereas I can never take their clients without them. So I think that's the challenge. And I studied this. I remember applying myself, because I want to be where I'm best positioned in order to serve society. So I'm passionate about litigation. I choose to focus on that, because that means I can really continue developing my skill in court craft and things that are very close to that dynamic. But as a trust account advocate, you can really have a larger scope. So you have so much more freedom, and it can be very fun, because you could build your own dynamic practice. You can establish a different brand, but then remember, your market isn't attorneys. Your market necessarily attorneys. There might be special attorneys you have relationships that want to use you, but your market is the client. So your market is the public. So the client wants something special. So the person, I know that Dr. Tumbo Scott referred you to me because I'm an advocate, but I would say that a trust fund advocate is really opening themselves up to the same market that a practicing attorney is that's the same market that practicing attorney is operating on. So the thinking cap should be different for a trust account advocate. And there's nothing wrong with it, because what happened is, with the transformation, advocates really, we've been battling to have transformation in the litigation environment. We all know what the issues are. So the Legal Practice Council is trying, they're giving more choice. So they're saying those that want to litigate, you can take the matter directly from the public and litigate. So there's the choice. So I'm pro-choice. So my colleagues that want to take work directly from the public, they're now permitted to, provided they comply with the criteria. Before the Legal Practice Act, we would have been struck from the roll because you cannot do that. It was prohibited by law. So all I can say is the thinking is good. The thinking for transformation is good, but you need to strategize, you need to think further, and you need to think now, is this really going to affect transformation? Because now you are, I think as a trust fund advocate, you're still only allowed to practice independently. So I don't think you have the advantage of collaborating and setting up a firm of directors. So remember now, here's this one trust account advocate against this whole big firm, and your competition, probably what you can offer, you're one human being. So I applaud the thinking that has gone into creating this choice, but remember that the Legal Practice Act is still in transition, so they are still welcoming insights and how they can develop further. So if you look at the sections, which I studied a while ago, and I must tell you, I looked at all of this probably like a year or two ago, very long time ago. So I'm speaking to you from recollection. And I think that was the danger I saw. I saw that because I'm an advocate, so I can never partner with someone. But Dr. Soweto Scott, other attorneys, they can have directors that are their equals in firms, so they can form a bigger structure. And they can then, when you are together as more, you can compete probably more effectively. So I would probably say that, look, can we challenge that act at the moment and say it's really anti-competitive? I would think not, because it clearly states that this is still open to further ideation. They're looking for insights, and possibly in 2 years' time, they can revisit all these parameters. So these are still, it's law, but it's interim and it's open to development. So if that trust fund advocate is finding that there's problems, I would say look at the Legal Practice Act, identify what the problems are statutorily that are impeding your ability to effectively compete with practicing attorneys, and then make the specific recommendations. Because advocates, as far as I know, for referral advocates, we definitely cannot partner. I'm prohibited. I can never set up a partnership with another advocate and run as a partner. And I believe from my reading probably a year or two ago that a trust fund advocate is in the exact same position. But think about it, yet that trust fund advocate is competing with practicing attorneys. But the practicing attorneys have more leverage on what they can do in terms of sourcing that client base. So it makes, now that we've deliberated this, I know that I said it didn't make sense to me, but I think for this prima facie, at first blush, it would be that, all the clients would become running to the trust fund advocate. But think about this trust fund advocate. They are the only person in that firm, and then they don't have equal help. They don't have directors. They don't have others on the same nature. So yet they are open to doing all the work, meaning they can do everything. So yet, you would need help. You would need possibly paralegals, or you need to figure out how to ameliorate that issue. And maybe that trust fund, the answer for the trust fund advocate is, if you can't have equals as directors, is then perhaps to start recruiting paralegals and let them help you with the work if the work starts coming in. But there are challenges, and practice is by its very nature tough because you are competing. So except if you're under 5 years as a practitioner, you need to accept that you're on this journey for reasons beyond beyond a quick cash flow. It takes years to develop. So I mean, a lot of my colleagues and I, when we started out, we rolled on our overdraft for years and years until eventually we could say, phew, you know, I don't need to sweat about whether I can pay the bills. But it's really tough. And I would say, you know, there is such a reward to that challenge. Expect to be challenged, but there is a deep, deep reward, because that means that we understand the law and can shape the future. And all the youth and everybody starting out, don't underestimate that, you know, there is such rewards after successfully climbing Everest, because that view is outstanding. And how many people in the world can say they've actually seen the world from the vantage point of Everest? And don't be shy to always seek support. So I know I've been quite extensive, but because I'm a lawyer, I always try to give you the very best that I can. So that's my best response to your question. I hope that is helpful.
No, thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks a lot. Sorry from me. I'm just saying thanks a lot. That's quite a mouthful and it helps a lot.
Okay, thank you so much, Advocate Tari. Thank you so much for your contribution. We have reached the end of our webinar. I believe we have a few seconds left of our meeting. So thank you so much for everyone for joining us. Thank you so much to our speakers. It is very insightful, incredibly motivating, and we actually have a good glimpse of how to go about making use of our legal qualifications and how to actually go about it. So thank you very much for everyone who is here today. Please do follow us on our social media, SABWiL, South African Black Woman in Law. You'll find us on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Yeah, we have an upcoming webinar on the POPI Act, so please watch out on our social media for that. Otherwise, thank you very much. That is it for today. Happy Youth Day, and all the best with your legal profession endeavors. So yeah, thank you very much.
Promise, I would also love to know where we can find our speakers on social media platforms. If we have a minute, please.
Yes, please.
Okay. Because I have my hand up, I'll just start off by saying that you can find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and LinkedIn. It's all Tsepiso Scott, but more importantly, you can find Tumbo Scott on all those platforms as well. I just wanted, the reason why my hand is up is just to ask everyone to please complete the questionnaire that's been shared in the chat section so that you can assist us with improving the workshops for next time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Scott.
Thank you so much for organizing this session. I think I also learned a lot from this, with the conventional areas and everything. You can find me on LinkedIn and Facebook, I guess Instagram and Twitter as well. Yeah, LinkedIn. Mopulus Talilum on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry to interject. Are you also on Instagram by any chance?
Yes, it's Mapule_S on Instagram, Mapule_S.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a lovely Youth Day, everyone. Thank you so much for attending.